Thanks, Nandan, for joining us today.
Thank you, Arya. Thank you for having me.
In your book in 2009, you spoke about quite fondly about your days at IIT Bombay and that you're a product of a public university system and which worked well for you at that point of
And
time.
for you went to National Law School.
And for me as well.
I went to JNU.
In JNU. So we're all products of a
Yes.
public university system. But as you mentioned in your book rather ruefully that the system was crumbling. And when you as an entrepreneur wanted to do something about it, of course things were done. But there were all kinds of questions asked as to why so much money had to be poured into making a hostel, for example. What's ailing our university system?
Well, I think, first of all, I think all of us, and certainly the three of us, and certainly most Indians, have benefited hugely from a taxpayer funded, low cost education system which has brought us to where we are. And that's very important to realize because in a place like the US today, the high cost of higher education is a huge barrier to upward mobility. So the rich can send their children to Ivy League colleges, but others can't. And student loans is at more than $1 trillion of debt. So I think we have benefited from that. But clearly, we have to do a lot more to make our universities much better in quality and so on. But I must say, I mean, I've been involved with the IITs, and there's a remarkable change in terms of more research, more young professors coming, more capacity. The number of students is much more. But it's a slow, building universities is not, it takes 800 years for Oxford kind of thing. So, or 300 years for Yale. So it takes years and decades to make universities, and of course Cambridge. So
800.
I didn't want to leave out Cambridge.
Well, maybe 790.
No, it's 800 plus.
Yeah.
But
So,
yes.
so I think these are not things that you can turn on a dime or something. It's going to take years. So I think, but there's definitely progress. Is it adequate? Of course, it's not. But the other thing is that I think is the good development is the rise of well-funded private universities, and I think that's the good news, which is that people are willing to fund private universities. I'm involved with something called IIHS, which is the Institute for Human Settlement,
Yes.
which is a urbanization kind of university. But there are many. Ashoka has built a very fine liberal arts university in Delhi. There's Azim Premji University and so on. So
But
I
is
think
it likely to? Is it likely, unlike the public universities from which I've certainly benefited, that there is a new kind of inequality that is also coming in with private universities, and there's a new paradox emerging in India. India's aspiration that everyone wants to go to a private university, but they would like a government job. Right. Part of it is there is a lot of in terms of aspirations, you could, in a way, reduce it to that. The job crisis.
No,
is,
I think probably. I mean, look. Obviously, the job crisis is leading to people with PhDs applying to work in.
Yes.
So that's one,
a different matter. Yes.
That's a different thing, and because government jobs have security, pay well, and so on. So and there are no other jobs to take. I think the private education thing is also happening because India is spending today billions of dollars. Indians are spending to go abroad
That's
for the
right.
undergraduation, to the US, Australia, the UK. And even if a fraction of that was invested in India to build world-class universities, that would be also a way to, have universities here. And because clearly people are willing to pay for these
That's
things.
right.
So I think it's more of that's happening.
But I mean, again, the question, yes, I see that, and I think that's a private university model has been able to sort of circumvent or at least produce a new kind of competition. But one of the goals of public universities was also things like social equality and the lack of bar, in fact, even affirmative action that it brought in, which I don't think the private universities need to adhere to. And which is also producing a new kind of, I would say, inequality, stratification, criticism in this country, that we will probably get two very different tiers of education in India.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the choice is not between public in India and private in India. The choice is between private in India and private abroad. And we do know that Indians, few 100,000 Indians study abroad.
Yes.
And spend billions of dollars in fees and so on in the UK or in the US or in Canada or Australia. And they are, that could be done here.
Yeah, that point is well taken. But that I think is really skimming the surface, because the fact is when you think about private universities at scale in India, and I may be mistaken, but I think about the 300 so-called private universities in Chhattisgarh, which are essentially corner stores. Okay, and this something like this operates all across the country. So do you see that this problem? And I agree with you that it's not just about private and public, but perhaps it's about quality. So do you think private is capable of producing quality at scale for the millions who are aspiring,
Which
not
public
just the people who
universities
would
have
have
done.
not just the people who would have gone to Ivy League
And-
otherwise.
No, it's a different
But also
matter
the question of-
whether these universities have the aspiration. But absolutely. I mean, like the work we do at IHS is training thousands of municipal workers.
But when will there be 20,000 IIHSs?
Ah, okay, but you need more. Again, I mean, it's,
No, but
as
what
I
does
said,
it need? That's really the
No,
question.
I think starting and setting up university, making them top class is it's a marathon race. It's not a
Sure.
sprint. But I think the fact is, if you look at the Institute of Excellence program, which there are quite a few, at least 20, 30 applicants who are well funded with big ambition and want to have quality and want to provide access. So I think it's all there.
So you think it is possible to do at scale, though?
Yeah, and you have to open it up because not doing it is the worst option. No?
Because one of the achievements of our public universities was actually that they've been cutting edge research universities. So even in the medical sector, and where we've had a longer history of the private sector
I'm all
play.
for public universities. I'm not saying don't do that too.
No, I say that, but I'm just saying that how are we going to ensure that the private universities, say barring the one or two we can take easily names of, which are research centric as well, that they are not just shops, they are not just which is what Orgo is referring to, which are beyond regulation without social access, and they are because there is a higher education deficit.
No. The fact that there are aberrations in this does not mean that we should not attempt
Sure.
to create a high quality higher education sector in India which is privately funded because there's such a big gap between aspiration and reality. I mean, the biggest industry in India is the coaching industry.
That's right.
Why is there a coaching industry? Because there are only a few hundred seats in IIT and few lakh people applying, or a few hundred jobs in the IAS and few lakh people applying.
That's right.
And you have now people going at the age of 8 or something to quota
That's
to prepare
right.
for this. So we have created this incredibly ruthless.
Para economy.
Yeah,
it's a para-economy
because of lack of
education.
opportunity.
Yeah,
So creating opportunity is the name of the game.
right.
Okay, so let's
On emphasis.
conclude
Yes.
that it's been a long journey from Patni in, what was it, the late 70s, early
Yeah.
80s,
81.
and back again to
To Infosys
now
as director.
as non-executive chairman.
Yeah.
So if you were to sum up that journey in a couple of lines, how's it been?
Well, it's, life is a circle.
This is very Hindu philosophical of you.
Yeah. I mean, I know. I've had a very interesting life and a lot of twists and turns. Some of them anticipated, some of them were completely serendipitous. So I think, but it's been fun all along, and I look forward to doing more contribution in the years to come.
And how do you see future big tech companies like Infosys emerging in India? What is the next generation of
No, I think
big
India is a very
companies?
thriving startups ecosystem. Place is buzzing with entrepreneurship. Young people with huge ambition and huge confidence are emerging. I live in Bangalore, which is at the epicenter of this revolution. I live in Koramangala, which is the epicenter of Bangalore, because within walking distance of my house, there are 300 startups.
Right.
So I think there's huge energy, and it's a very future-looking thing. And you have people who have big ideas on how to change agriculture, how to change education, how to change healthcare at scale using innovation. So it's a very exciting time.
So I think you may say you're a guarded optimist,
you're-
but I think we can drop the guarded by the end
Yes,
of
you're
it.
an optimist.
You're very much an optimist, and that's a good optimistic note to end on. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on the show.